It was a quiet afternoon at Brookfield High School. Most students had gone home for the day, but Maya Thompson, a spirited 16-year-old with a love for art, stayed behind. She had been planning something special for weeks, a colorful mural to brighten up the old, faded wall near the school's playground. Maya had been sketching her design in her notebook during lunch breaks, dreaming of creating something her classmates would love. With her spray paints tucked neatly in her backpack, Maya approached the wall. The school's maintenance staff had neglected the area for years, and Maya saw it as the perfect canvas. She wanted to turn the dull gray space into a vibrant message of positivity for her friends and teachers. As the first lines of color began to take shape, Maya felt a rush of excitement. The mural would be a surprise, a gift to the school. She hummed quietly to herself, losing track of time as she worked. Unbeknownst to her, Mr. Randall Smith, one of the school's strictest teachers, was still in the building. Mr. Smith had a reputation for being firm and unforgiving, especially when it came to school rules. He was heading to the parking lot when he noticed a figure near the wall. Squinting, he saw Maya holding a spray can and painting on the bricks. His heart sank. Vandalism, he muttered to himself. Without stopping to think, Mr. Smith marched toward Maya, his face flushed with anger. "Maya Thompson," he shouted, startling her. She dropped the spray can and turned around, her eyes wide with fear. "Mr. Smith, what do you think you're doing?" he interrupted, his voice sharp and accusatory. "Defacing school property. Have you lost your mind?" Maya tried to explain, but her words came out in a rush. "It's not vandalism, sir. I'm painting a mural. It's for the school. I wanted to surprise everyone." But Mr. Smith wasn't listening. In his eyes, the bright colors on the wall were nothing but graffiti. Furious, he grabbed Maya's wrist to stop her from picking up another spray can. "Stop lying," he snapped. "Do you think this is some kind of joke? You're in serious trouble, young lady." Maya winced, struggling to pull away. "Please, let me go," she pleaded. "You don't understand." By now, the commotion had caught the attention of a few students who were still nearby. They rushed over, pulling out their phones to record what was happening. "Hey, stop it," one of them shouted. "You're hurting her." The situation spiraled out of control. Maya, overwhelmed and frightened, couldn't hold back her tears. Mr. Smith, realizing that students were recording him, let go of her wrist but continued to berate her. "You'll be explaining this to the principal tomorrow," he said before storming off toward his car. Maya sat on the ground, shaken. The students who had witnessed the incident gathered around her, offering words of comfort. One of them whispered, "We've got it all on video. You don't have to face this alone." Little did Mr. Smith know, Maya's father was none other than Dr. Charles Thompson, the school's principal, and by the next morning, this misunderstanding would become the talk of the entire school. The morning sun rose over Brookfield High, but the usual calm of the campus was absent. By the time students and staff arrived, the events of the previous afternoon had already begun to spread. Videos of the confrontation between Mr. Smith and Maya had gone viral within the school's community. Students shared the footage on social media with captions like, "Mr. Smith loses it," and "Maya didn't deserve this." In the principal's office, Dr. Charles Thompson sat at his desk, his phone buzzing nonstop with notifications. As the school's leader, he was used to handling various issues, but today was different. One of the videos had been sent directly to him, and as he watched it, his jaw tightened. The girl in the video wasn't just a student, it was his daughter. Dr. Thompson watched the footage in disbelief as Mr. Smith grabbed Maya's wrist and shouted at her. The fear in Maya's eyes and the tears on her face hit him hard. He knew Maya was an artist, passionate about expressing herself through colors and designs. He also knew she would never intentionally damage school property. Just then, Maya walked into the office, her head low and her shoulders slumped. "Dad, I'm sorry," she said quietly, her voice shaky. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Dr. Thompson stood and approached her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to apologize, Maya. I saw the video. Tell me exactly what happened." Maya took a deep breath and explained everything. How she had been planning the mural as a surprise for weeks, how Mr. Smith had misunderstood her intentions, and how the situation escalated when he refused to listen. Dr. Thompson's expression softened, but his resolve hardened. "I'm proud of you for trying to do something positive, Maya. What happened wasn't your fault. I'll handle this." Meanwhile, in the teacher's lounge, Mr. Smith was unaware of the storm brewing around him. He sipped his coffee, feeling justified in his actions. To him, Maya's mural was an act of vandalism, and he believed he had acted appropriately to stop it. But his confidence began to waver when another teacher approached him. "Randall, have you seen what's going around?" she asked, showing him the video on her phone. Mr. Smith's face turned pale as he watched the footage. This is taken out of context," he stammered. "I was just trying to stop her from damaging the wall." "Context or not, it doesn't look good," the teacher replied. "And you might want to know. That's Principal Thompson's daughter." The color drained from Mr. Smith's face. He hadn't realized who Maya was, and now he was beginning to understand the gravity of the situation. Back in the principal's office, Dr. Thompson was making calls to address the issue. He scheduled a meeting with Mr. Smith and key members of the school board to discuss what had happened. At the same time, he reassured Maya that she wouldn't face any disciplinary action. "Maya, I'll make sure this is handled fairly," he said. "No one has the right to treat you, or any student, like that." As the day unfolded, the school buzzed with conversations about the incident. Students rallied behind Maya, praising her for her creativity and condemning Mr. Smith's behavior. By the time the final bell rang, it was clear that this was no longer a simple misunderstanding. It was a turning point for the entire school, and the fallout was only beginning. The next morning, the tension in Brookfield High was palpable. The hallways buzzed with murmurs about the confrontation between Mr. Smith and Maya. Students exchanged looks as they passed by the principal's office, wondering how the situation would unfold. Many had seen the video by now, and the school was divided. Some sided with Maya, applauding her artistic vision, while others believed Mr. Smith had simply been doing his job. Inside the principal's office, Dr. Charles Thompson prepared for his meeting with Mr. Smith. He had spent the night reviewing the video and considering the best way to handle the situation. As a father, his heart ached for Maya, but as a principal, he knew he needed to approach this professionally. When Mr. Smith arrived, he looked nervous. He had heard the whispers and seen the disapproving glances from students and staff. As he entered the office, he met Dr. Thompson's steady gaze and knew this was going to be a serious conversation. "Have a seat, Mr. Smith," Dr. Thompson said, his tone calm but firm. "We need to discuss what happened yesterday." Mr. Smith sat down, clasping his hands together. "Sir, before we begin, I want to say that I believe I was protecting school property. When I saw Maya with the spray paint, I assumed she was vandalizing." Dr. Thompson nodded. "I understand why you might have thought that. But did you take a moment to ask her what she was doing? Did you try to understand her intentions?" Mr. Smith hesitated. "No, I didn't. I acted in the heat of the moment." Dr. Thompson leaned forward, his voice steady. "That's the issue, Mr. Smith. You made assumptions without gathering all the facts. Maya was painting a mural, a project she had been planning for weeks. She wasn't vandalizing. She was trying to create something beautiful for her classmates." Mr. Smith's face flushed with embarrassment. "I didn't know, I thought." Dr. Thompson cut him off gently. "What you thought isn't the problem. It's how you reacted. You grabbed her, shouted at her, and humiliated her in front of other students. That's not how we handle situations here at Brookfield High." The weight of Dr. Thompson's words sank in. Mr. Smith realized he had not only misjudged Maya, but also failed in his duty as a teacher. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to hurt her." Dr. Thompson's expression softened slightly. I believe you didn't mean to, but intentions don't erase the impact. Maya is a student who trusts us to guide and support her, not to treat her unfairly. You broke that trust. The conversation ended with Dr. Thompson outlining the next steps. Mr. Smith would face disciplinary action, and the school board would review his conduct. While Mr. Smith wasn't dismissed, it was clear his actions had serious consequences. Meanwhile, Maya sat in the art room with her closest friends, trying to process everything. Her classmates had rallied around her, bringing snacks, writing encouraging notes, and offering to help finish her mural once it was approved. I didn't mean for it to turn into all this, Maya said, her voice tinged with guilt. Her best friend, Lily, shook her head. You have nothing to feel bad about, Maya. You were just trying to make something beautiful, and now everyone knows how amazing you are. Maya smiled weakly, still unsure how to feel. But deep down, she was relieved that her father had her back. As the school braced for more developments, one thing was clear. This incident had sparked a conversation about fairness, assumptions, and the responsibility of authority figures to lead with understanding. The video of the incident had spread far beyond Brookfield High by now. Parents, alumni, and even local community members had started weighing in on social media. Some demanded harsh punishment for Mr. Smith, while others defended him, claiming he had simply made a mistake in a high-pressure situation. The story had sparked debates about how authority figures should handle conflicts with students. At school, Maya found herself at the center of attention. While most of her classmates supported her, she couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. Every hallway she passed through was filled with whispers, and every glance reminded her of the incident. Lily, her best friend, tried to cheer her up during lunch. Everyone's talking about how brave you are, Maya. You stood up for yourself. I didn't really do anything brave, Maya said, poking at her sandwich. I just froze. And now it's all blown out of proportion. It's not out of proportion. Another friend, Ethan, chimed in. What happened to you shouldn't have happened. That's why people are talking about it. They want things to change. Meanwhile, Dr. Thompson was dealing with a different kind of pressure. Emails flooded his inbox, some from concerned parents asking how the school would address the situation, and others criticizing the attention the story was getting. The school board had scheduled an emergency meeting to discuss Mr. Smith's actions and the policies that allowed such an incident to happen. Before the meeting, Dr. Thompson called Maya into his office. I want you to know that whatever happens, I'm proud of you, he told her. This situation is difficult, but it's opening up conversations we've needed to have for a long time. Maya nodded. Do you think people will stop blaming me? They should, Dr. Thompson said. You did nothing wrong. But it takes time for some people to understand that. At the same time, Mr. Smith was struggling with the fallout. He had stayed home since the meeting with Dr. Thompson, unsure of how to face his colleagues and students. The realization that Maya was the principal's daughter had added an extra layer of guilt to his actions. Sitting in his living room, Mr. Smith scrolled through comments on the video. Some defended him, saying he acted out of concern for school property, but many criticized his handling of the situation. One comment stuck with him. Being a teacher isn't just about rules. It's about understanding your students. Mr. Smith failed at that. The words lingered in his mind as he tried to reflect on what had led to his reaction. Deep down, he knew he had made assumptions about Maya that weren't fair. Back at school, the students were organizing. A group of seniors approached Dr. Thompson with an idea to create an open forum where students and teachers could discuss what had happened and how the school could improve its culture. Dr. Thompson agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to turn a painful event into a chance for growth. The forum was scheduled for the following week, and Maya hesitantly agreed to attend. If this helps prevent something like this from happening again, I'll do it, she told Lily. As the day ended, a sense of anticipation hung over the school. Everyone was waiting to see how the forum, the school board meeting, and Mr. Smith's fate would unfold. For Maya, it was a small comfort to know that she wasn't alone in this. Her friends, her father, and even her classmates were standing by her side. And that made all the difference. The day of the open forum arrived, and the atmosphere at Brookfield High was a mix of tension and anticipation. The school's auditorium was packed with students, parents, teachers, and even community members who wanted to hear what would be discussed. On stage, a panel of speakers sat, including Dr. Thompson, Mr. Smith, and a few student representatives, including Maya. Maya sat nervously, glancing at the crowd. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, and now she was about to speak in front of everyone. Her father gave her a reassuring smile from his seat beside her. "Just speak your truth, Maya," he whispered. "You're stronger than you think." The forum began with Dr. Thompson addressing the audience. "Thank you all for being here today," he started. "What happened recently at our school has brought up important conversations about how we treat one another, how we handle conflict, and how we can build a better community. This forum is about listening, learning, and finding solutions together." The audience clapped politely, and Dr. Thompson invited Maya to share her story. Maya's heart raced as she stood up, but she took a deep breath and began. "I love art," she said simply, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I wanted to create something beautiful for our school, a mural that would make people smile. I didn't think anyone would see it as vandalism, and I didn't expect things to go the way they did." She paused, looking at the audience. What hurt the most wasn't just the misunderstanding. It was feeling like I wasn't given a chance to explain myself. "I know rules are important, but so is listening. I just hope we can learn from this and do better in the future." The room was silent for a moment before the audience erupted into applause. Maya felt a wave of relief as she sat back down, her friends in the crowd giving her encouraging thumbs-ups. Next, Mr. Smith spoke. He stood up, visibly nervous, and cleared his throat. "I want to start by apologizing," he said, "not just to Maya, but to everyone who's been affected by this situation. I made a mistake. I let my assumptions guide my actions instead of taking the time to understand what was happening." He looked directly at Maya. "Maya, I'm sorry for the way I treated you. I see now that I should have listened instead of jumping to conclusions. I've been reflecting a lot on what it means to be a teacher, and I realize I have a lot to learn." The audience listened intently, and while there were no cheers for Mr. Smith, there was a sense of respect for his willingness to admit his mistake. The forum continued with students and parents sharing their thoughts and ideas. Many talked about the need for better communication between students and teachers, as well as the importance of addressing biases and assumptions. By the end of the forum, a sense of progress filled the room. Dr. Thompson announced several changes, including the introduction of workshops for teachers on conflict resolution and understanding student perspectives. He also shared plans to create a student advisory council to give students a stronger voice in school matters. As the crowd dispersed, Maya felt lighter. She hadn't expected the forum to fix everything, but it was a start. Her mural project was officially approved, and her friends eagerly volunteered to help her complete it. Walking out of the auditorium, Maya looked at her father and said, "I think we did something good today." Dr. Thompson smiled. "We did, Maya. And this is only the beginning." After the forum, the atmosphere at Brookfield High began to shift. Students, teachers, and parents all seemed more aware of the need to communicate and understand one another. Maya, though still a little nervous, was starting to feel like her voice had made a difference. For the first time, she felt seen, not just as a student, but as someone who could spark change. Dr. Thompson kept his promise to implement new programs. One of the first was a series of workshops for teachers on active listening and conflict resolution. Mr. Smith was one of the first to sign up. Although many teachers whispered about his involvement, he knew it was important to show his willingness to learn and grow. During the first session, the facilitator, a seasoned educator, asked the teachers to share a moment when they had made a mistake in judgment. When it was Mr. Smith's turn, He stood up and said, "A mistake I'll never forget is assuming I knew everything about a situation before listening to the person involved. That mistake hurt a student and made me question how I approach my role as a teacher." The room was silent for a moment, and then the facilitator nodded. "Recognizing our mistakes is the first step toward growth," she said. "Thank you for sharing." Meanwhile, Maya was focusing on finishing her mural. With her father's approval and the school's support, she and her friends gathered after classes to work on the project. The once drab wall was now bursting with life. Bright colors and positive messages adorned the bricks, and students passing by often stopped to compliment her work. One afternoon, as Maya painted, Mr. Smith approached cautiously. He stood at a distance for a moment, then cleared his throat. "Maya, may I talk to you for a moment?" Maya put down her paintbrush and turned to face him. "Sure," she said, her tone neutral but not unfriendly. "I wanted to thank you," Mr. Smith began, "for what you said at the forum. It couldn't have been easy to share your story in front of so many people, but you did it with grace and courage." Maya nodded, unsure how to respond. "I also want to apologize again," he continued, "not just for what I did, but for failing to see you for who you are, a talented, passionate student who is trying to make a difference. I'm truly sorry." Maya looked at him for a moment, then said, "Thank you, Mr. Smith. I appreciate that. I just hope we can all learn from this and move forward." He nodded. "We can, and we will. If there's ever anything I can do to help with your art or anything else, please let me know." As he walked away, Maya felt a small sense of closure. She didn't know if she could completely forgive him yet, but she respected that he was trying to make things right. In the following days, the mural became a centerpiece of the school. Students and staff alike stopped to admire it, and even parents visiting the campus commented on its beauty. Maya's work wasn't just a piece of art. It was a symbol of resilience, understanding, and change. Dr. Thompson, watching from his office window one day, felt a swell of pride. His daughter's strength and creativity had turned a difficult situation into an opportunity for growth, not just for her, but for the entire school. As the mural neared completion, Maya added one final touch. A small quote in the corner that read, "Listen first, act second." It was a reminder to everyone that sometimes understanding could make all the difference. The mural was finally complete. It stretched across the entire wall, filled with vibrant colors and uplifting messages that reflected the spirit of the school. Maya stood back with her friends, paintbrushes in hand, and admired their work. The once gray wall was now alive, a symbol of unity and hope for everyone at Brookfield High. The unveiling ceremony was planned for the following Friday. Students, parents, and teachers gathered around the mural as Dr. Thompson stood at the podium. Maya stood beside him, feeling a mix of nervousness and pride. Her father adjusted the microphone and began to speak. "Today, we're here to celebrate more than just a beautiful piece of art," he said. "We're here to celebrate resilience, understanding, and growth. This mural represents what we can achieve when we listen to one another, when we take the time to understand, and when we work together." The crowd clapped, and Dr. Thompson turned to Maya. "This mural wouldn't exist without the vision and determination of my daughter, Maya. Her courage to express herself and her willingness to turn a difficult moment into something positive has inspired us all." Maya stepped forward as the crowd cheered. She smiled shyly and waved. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "This mural isn't just about me. It's about all of us, students, teachers, and our community. I hope it reminds everyone that even when things go wrong, we can work together to make them right." The applause was thunderous, and Maya felt a warmth in her chest. She glanced at her father, who gave her a proud nod. Mr. Smith stood at the back of the crowd, watching quietly. He had attended the ceremony to show his support, even though he still felt a weight of guilt for his actions. As the crowd dispersed, he approached Maya. "That was a beautiful speech," he said. "And the mural, it's incredible. You've done something really special here." "Thank you, Mr. Smith," Maya replied, her tone kind but measured. She appreciated his words, but the memory of their confrontation still lingered. "I'm working on being better," Mr. Smith added. "Thanks to you and your father, I've learned a lot about listening and understanding." Maya gave him a small smile. "That's good to hear. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is learning from them." As the days passed, the mural became a beloved feature of Brookfield High. Students often stopped to take pictures in front of it, and teachers used it as an example of how creativity could inspire change. Maya found herself receiving more respect and encouragement from her peers and teachers alike. Dr. Thompson, true to his word, continued implementing changes within the school. The new workshops for teachers were well received, and the Student Advisory Council gave students a platform to share their concerns and ideas. Slowly but surely, the school's culture began to shift. For Maya, the experience had been challenging, but it had also taught her valuable lessons about resilience and the power of standing up for what she believed in. Her mural wasn't just a painting. It was a reminder of her strength and the strength of her community. One afternoon, as she walked past the mural, she noticed a group of younger students admiring it. One of them turned to her and said, "You made this, right? It's amazing." Maya smiled. "Thanks. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to all of us," the student replied. Maya walked away, feeling a sense of fulfillment she hadn't expected. The mural was more than art. It was a new beginning for her, for Mr. Smith, and for Brookfield High. Together, they had turned a moment of misunderstanding into a lasting legacy of hope and change.